Alright guys, welcome back to Jerky's Backyard Shenanigans. So today we're going to be getting the cross member pretty much all done. I've figured out what I'm going to do as far as the difference between the transmission mount and the actual top of the cross member. So I did wind up taking that piece of Ford factory cross member that I cut up. And I cut it up even more. Got about 1/2 inch gap right there. And what we are going to do, we're going to sit that right on top and then box in each side. I think once I get this lined up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same as what I did on the bottom and just wind up cutting that square out. And I think by doing that, it won't crush, but it'll still be pretty stout because it is boxed on both sides. So I think that's what I'm going to do as far as that. Now the gussets I was telling you about, we're going to do 3 on each side, something like that. I am not a professional welder, so don't judge me too harshly. And then as far as this gap, what we're going to do is we're going to trim it. I kind of marked it how it sits in the frame. We're going to trim it at the angle that the frame sits. We're going to take our piece of 3/16 sheet. We're going to come up with it a couple inches off that, so that way we can drill 2 more holes through the frame, and we'll have 4 bolts each side. And then what we'll do for the gap between these two is we'll actually make another gusset that goes across 2 of them. And I think that should be pretty stout and hopefully not weigh too much, because I don't want to have this thing weigh like 60 something pounds and then go to take it off and knock myself out, you know what I mean? But that's pretty much where we're at right now. I'll finish welding up this side, get the gussets on it, get both sides up, and then when I get this side figured out, we'll actually put this in a drill press, drill the holes out to put our sleeves through, something like that. And that'll allow us 1/2 inch bolts on each side. Again, should be pretty stout. Not a professional fabricator, so. Alright guys, got both sides gusseted up, welded all the way around. Now what we're going to do, we're going to drill 4 holes right here. We're going to cut that section out, and we're going to weld this piece right on top of that, and we're going to box it in on both sides. So once we get that done, what we'll do is we'll drill the holes, put our sleeves in there, and when we get our sleeves in there, we'll focus on cutting the side pieces, and we'll go ahead and knock the side pieces out, put the gussets in, and I think we'll be all done. I think we will be all done. Alright guys, so I got the holes drilled out, got our sleeves kind of put through. Now we're going to go ahead and weld them all around here, kind of tack them in here, and weld as much as we can in there. Now I figured out the end cap situation. So essentially what we're going to do here, we're going to weld these after we weld the sleeves in straight like that, and that should come off enough. I'll have a pretty decent side portion. And to gusset them, I got this piece right here. We're going to go ahead and box them on both sides. So that should keep everything good and straight, and then we'll have more than one point of contact on the actual frame. And then, as you can see, I got this all welded in, all boxed up. So yeah, that's pretty much it for right now. Just gonna go ahead and pretty much just finish welding this, and I believe that should be the end of this saga. And then we're gonna pray that it fits in the vehicle, because we don't have the vehicle here to actually measure that. So fingers crossed. Alright guys, I officially think we're pretty much all done. We just got some grinding work to do to kind of purdy it up and then paint it. But pretty much this is what we got. So these ends are boxed in and then welded on both sides. Welded all the way around. These two holes are going to be the top holes that go in the frame. But yeah, essentially Bob is your uncle. So I think this is going to be pretty stout. I will fit it up in the vehicle and show you guys how it turned out. But yeah, I think we're pretty much done with the cutting and the welding, and now we just got to grind it, paint it, and fit it, and we should have a Zf5 cross member in pretty much no time. So appreciate you guys hanging in there on this one. Alright guys, so we're back at the backyard. Got cross member home. Got it all mocked up. So that's what I was talking about with the side plates. We're gonna have 2 bolts going through the actual top of the frame right there to kind of hold it that way, and our 2 bolts on the bottom, and then that is pretty much why I cut that factory piece of cross member up and boxed it in, is just get that good and flush. Now something I did realize is I didn't accurately measure it for the original location I had in mind, about 1 inch back from the radius arms. So if you notice, it is right on the radius arms, but it still fit. So just a happy accident there that everything worked out. Now that gives me a little bit better access to the front drive shaft bolts. And another thing it did too is now I don't have to actually trim the factory skid plate cross member, because this edge sits right in line with where the factory skid plate would sit. So I guess sometimes it's just better to be lucky than good. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get the bolts re-drilled, because we did have to move it about 1 inch forward. So our bolt hole locations are not going to line up, and it's a good thing we only went with the 5/16 bolts instead of going to the full 1/2 inch right off the bat. So we'll be okay with just drilling out the frame where it needs to sit, and then it should pretty much wrap up the fabrication part of the cross member, and then we'll just have to again clean it up with a grinder and paint it up all nice and pretty. But that aspect of this will be done. Be able to measure for our front and rear drive shafts, and then once that is done, we'll get them back in the vehicle, make sure that they're gonna fit, and then we'll tear this whole thing back apart, get the engine put in, get the tranny put in, get the T-case put in after they get rebuilt. And then once all the major drivetrain stuff is done, we can focus on the wiring, fuel pump lines, finish the brakes, and then we can start worrying about all of the rest of the little odds and ends with the wiring, making sure we got everything hooked up right, make sure we get the interior all figured out, and hopefully if everything goes smoothly, we'll have this up and running for at least a initial test drive by maybe the end of September. We'll just kind of have to play it by ear, see what happens. But that's pretty much the goal now, is to just get this test driven by at least the end of September. Then over the winter we can finish up all the odds and ends, and then get it registered before March, because that is inevitably our end-all be-all deadline. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at right now. Might have a couple more things to show you in this video, but I think that's pretty much it about as far as the cross member goes. And then I can get to show you some more cooler stuff, like our glow shift gauges that we got and all the fun interior stuff I have planned. We're gonna pretty much, this truck had no speakers in it when I bought it, so we're gonna run new speakers, new head unit, nothing too crazy, just a couple 4.5s and a couple 6x9s. Again, nothing crazy, just enough for decent sound. And then the exhaust, I'm probably going to wind up running the same muffler that I've been running on my other trucks, a single chamber sort of MagnaFlow Super 10 style muffler, just a cheap knockoff. And then it's probably going to be 3-inch pipe after the Y pipe, because the Y pipe's 2.5 inch, so it'll go into a 3-inch, and then we'll just go out to a single tail pipe, just keep it easy. Might put an AFR gauge in it just to make sure that the computer's doing what the computer says it's doing. But yeah, that's about all I can think of right now, so I'll go ahead and show you anything else that we need to show you.